So when I'm starting this haircut, I have them sectioned out into a horseshoe on top with cutting aid already ready to go. On the bottom portion, I'm going to start with a number 3. You can utilize a number 3 or a number 2 and get the same effect. I personally like to work with a number 3 to start out with, so it is a longer length. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be concentrating that number 3 low just above that ear here. So 1 finger above the ear or 1/2 inch. And then when I rock my fingers back in the back to meet, it's right about that occipital bone. So I want to make sure that I'm preserving the weight as I'm coming up and not taking off too much at once. So I'm going to keep it nice and low. I'm going to do what's called anchor, pivot, and suspend. I've talked about this on previous videos, but we're going to anchor that clipper teeth into that haircut. I'm going to pivot it back and I'm going to suspend, actually coming straight off of this haircut. That way I'm able to start the blend without preserving too much weight that I have to fight with later on when I'm cutting. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to do that anchor, pivot, and suspend right at the ear. I'm going to go in with my clipper nice and flat. I'm going to pivot at that low spot. I'm going to put my comb in just to help feed that hair through. So you can see I get that hair nice and close to the ear. I'm going to use the corner of my blade to go just around that ear to get in close, but without going too high. Again, pivoting and having my comb help hold that hair in place as I cut. Since I reached the top of the ear, I'm going to come back the opposite way with the opposite corner of my blade. Having my clipper held at a 45-degree angle so I don't go up too high into the haircut. There's one hair by the ear, I'm gonna grab that. Boom, got it. So now as you can see, I was able to maintain just 1 finger above that ear, and I'm gonna continue it back through the back here. As I get to the back, I'm making sure to drop my clipper and mock the hairline. That hairline goes at an angle this way, so will my clipper as we drop back. Anchor, pivot, coming straight up and off. Continue our way around here. So I fight my mannequin stand. Anchor, pivot, suspend. Holding that comb still will help feed that hair through. If you start cutting on top of your comb, I see that happening quite a bit when I'm teaching class, because some people get confused when it's still new and they start cutting on top of it. If that's what's happening to you, turn your comb over and just use the base. The idea is to help feed that hair through. Each time I take my next section, I'm trying to take some of my previous section with me, following your guide just like you would with the scissor cut. Around that ear, utilizing the corner of your blade at a 45 to the top of the ear, then the opposite way. Afterwards, I'm going to check for balance just to make sure we're even on both sides in the front here. And then I'll check for balance in the back as well, making sure that we're even all the way across. Now that I was able to take that 3 all the way around and remove that weight, I can actually see underneath. So in case I want to fade it down to a 1 or a 0, I'm better able to see my working area so I'm not fading blind. So next I'm going to go in with a number 1. We are going to pretend he's fading down to a number 1 today. And I'm going to do that same method of anchor, pivot, and suspend. But as I'm coming up, I am going to do a slight C-scoop motion versus coming up straight off of the head. In this way, I can start that blend from my 1 into my 3, making sure I stay below the clipper work that I already did, blending into that haircut. So I'm going to anchor it to the head, I'm going to pivot it back, and I'm going to suspend in that C-scoop motion. Again, this is going to start my blend for me, so that way I don't have to go back through with a 1.5 or a number 2. Around the ear, making sure to do that 45. Same thing from the back forward. I like to get in the habit of working from one side of the ear to the top at 12 here, and then the back to 12 as well. So 3 to 12 or 9 to 12. And I like to stop right there as a habit versus continuing all the way through. A lot of the times, if we get in the habit of working really fast and we just continue all the way through that ear, there's a chance that you can actually notch a hole either in front or behind the ear. So I just like to be in the habit of stopping at the top of that ear. And again, just anchor, pivot, and suspending into what we have, doing that C-scoop motion. At the nape, you can have your client look down. This will help you to really make sure you're staying below that weight that you created. And I recommend when this is a new method for you to move slow, because you can hear the hair actually stop cutting as you're coming up to blend to what you already have. This haircut is really big into control of your clipper. When utilizing this method, it's really about making sure that you have the right motion. At this point, if he wanted to go down to a 0, I would go through and do the same method with my 0, blending to what he has. Just to give you a slight demonstration, I will taper his sideburn and his neck for you guys so you can see. You're still going to anchor, pivot, and suspend, doing that C-scoop motion. If you were to go around the ears, you would just utilize the corner of your blade to do so. So then the opposite side here for the ear, same thing. And then his neck as well. Perfect. Okay, so next we're gonna take down the top, and what I wanna do is actually establish the length that he wants left over. So whether if he wants it to his nose tip, if he wants it to his chin, it really doesn't matter the length that he wants. I just wanna make sure that we're keeping it as long as he wants it, okay? So let's say for this one, let's be real dramatic, okay? So that way it's easier for you guys if you get a shorter haircut. We're gonna take down a good amount of front working area here. Make sure it's nice and damp. Notice I'm spraying it towards his forehead and not in his eyes in case he was a real client. I'm gonna establish my length in the front. I'm gonna say he wants it right to that nose tip, okay? So if he's going to that nose tip, I want little to no tension. So I'm gonna comb it down nice and flat, but then let go for that tension. And I'm gonna cut it straight across. Perfect. And we want it to blend to the top of the side working area. So when we're doing this, I don't want it to come to a vampire point. So the real key is making sure that I blend it from that eyebrow arch over and no further in. So what do I mean by that is I'm not going to cut past the eyebrow arch when I'm blending. So I'm going to angle my fingers to do a diagonal blend, but making sure that I keep all of my scissor work on the opposite side of his eyebrow arch. That way it doesn't actually make it a vampire point. It'll still be rounded in the front. So I'm gonna comb it down here straight at 0. That means straight in his space where it lives. And then I'm going to pivot with my fingers to blend. Take a little bit, recomb back out that section. Awesome. I'm going to do the same on the opposite side here. Once you finish both sides, you get something similar to this. As you can tell, it's still very much so full and rounded in the front, and it doesn't come so much to a vampire point, but it is blended on the sides here. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the rest of the top. So I'm going to go ahead and comb this back. And what I want to do is actually establish a Mohawk strip guide for my center. So finding our Mohawk strip guide, again, we want it about the width of our comb. I'm going to comb everything else out of my way that I'm not working with here. So that way I'm just working with that Mohawk strip. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start in the back where my clipper work has ended. I'm going to pinch with my fingertips my clipper work. So you can see my clipper work from the bottom here. Pinch it, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to blend up with a 45-degree angle. Making sure not to cut past my second knuckle. If I need to move up, I can recomb out my section and move up. That hair jumped in from over there. Let's re-split that guide. Make sure I stay nice and clean. As I work up the head. Once I reach here at that crown, I'm going to actually go to more of a flat cutting angle. And I'm going to start walking up the crown of the head with a flat cutting angle. Once I hit that peak, I should be able to continue flat to the front of my guide here. As you can see, I have my guide from that front section already in my fingers as well. And it'll be a nice flat cutting angle to blend the both. I want to make sure that when I'm doing this that I don't cut my front guide. You see how that fell out? I should be using the back of my front guide as my guide to cut to the back and blend. So once that is finished, I am going to split that Mohawk strip down the center. And I am going to be utilizing a pivot point variation method in order to actually blend. What do I mean by that? So first we have our typical pivot point, right? This is your head, this is your nose, you're looking straight down on him. I know, Pablo Picasso, I'm amazing, right? Just kidding. So what you're gonna do with typical pivot point is you're actually gonna use the apex or the high peak. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take small pie sections from there and actually blend from our side working area to our top working area or our middle Mohawk strip using pie slices. So each section you'll take half of what you used and you'll move it to your next section, okay? And you'll actually blend your way around the head utilizing that apex as your high point. Then we have my method. Okay, so the way this one works is it's very similar to your traditional pivot point. Again, you're looking down on your head. The only difference is instead of using that apex as your blending point, what I'm going to do instead is actually use his cowlick. Okay, we know these typically stand up like crazy on guys, right? So what I do is I actually will pivot from the cowlick. This actually allows me to keep it from being too short at this cowlick area. And then what it does is, as I'm using that pivot point, as I'm working towards the front of the head, my sections get longer and slimmer. This allows me to really make sure that I have enough weight left over in the middle of the haircut here to help preserve any type of recession or maybe missing hair in the front. It also allows me to make sure that I don't accidentally put a hole up in the front area as well. So utilizing my method, I'm going to start back here at 6 o'clock. Push the hair out of my way I'm not working with. Making sure to pinch my clipper work from the bottom here. Making sure I can see my guide clearly. Then I'll follow it up. Split that down the middle and work on my next piece. Since currently I am cutting over my knuckle, that means my body will be a couple clock positions behind instead of standing directly on that clock position. Making sure that my elbow stays level. Still utilizing that cowlick as I'm spinning around the haircut. And split that section. Take it with me as I work my way around. And I'll pull it out to the side first. And then I walk it up, making sure that I'm not cutting past that second knuckle. And as we get around to this side, sometimes it can be hard to really see your guide because it does get shorter as you work your way to the front here. This is why I really like to take it out to the side first, so that way I can clearly see what needs to come off as far as the weight when it drops down. Because if I pull it out to the side first, I'm gonna see exactly what's gonna fall down as soon as I let go, and anything that hangs out past that design line from underneath, I'm gonna make sure to remove it as I work my way up to that center guide. And if you notice, each section I take, I'm still taking a little bit from my cowlick area with me. You can see that guide. Now, as I make my way to this front hairline, the biggest thing I really want to make sure is that front guide that we already established falls out of my my cutting spot, so that way I don't accidentally put a hole into that front hairline. So again, I'm gonna pull it up because we're not gonna pull it out to the side because we already blended to the side. This is now the front hairline. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull it up from where it naturally lives, and I'm gonna make sure that that front hairline falls out, and then I can take my cut. Splitting that again. Working towards that front hairline again, pulling it straight from where it lives, making sure that that front hairline falls out, and then blending back to your Mohawk strip. So as you can see, it is all blended, but it has that length towards the front. Now we're gonna do the same on the opposite side now. So I went ahead and styled it the way he was going to wear it. So I'm gonna pretend this guy's wearing it forward, messy, curly, kind of just texturized with my finger. I went ahead and blow dried it with some Style Sexy Curl Cream and kind of scrunched it with my fingers to create that texture. Because a lot of the times when they have that extreme length, I feel like they're wearing it towards the front and curly. Some of them wear it back, but I like to style it in place before I finish with my clipper over comb. Since now it is styled in place, I'm gonna go through and just blend out this little bit of a ridge that we are seeing between my clipper work and my scissor work. The best way I've found to do this is actually blend with the hair growth. Since I'm having it flow forward, I am going to blend with it flowing forward, so that way it's just a smoother blend for me. I'm gonna put my clipper ink over comb in. I'm gonna angle it out till my clipper work at the bottom falls out and my scissor work up at the top falls out. And then I'm gonna go with the hair growth to blend it. It'll just help to soften that ridge just slightly without taking off a lot of length. Up at the front here, I'm gonna come up just a little bit. Just seemed a little heavy right there at the temple. Work my way around. I'm seeing just a little bit right here. Same thing, that hair is growing this way. So I'm going to put my clipper comb in. I'm gonna angle it out so my scissor work at the top falls out, my clipper work at the bottom falls out, and go with that hair growth to soften it out. And I'll do that across the back here as well. Going with that hair growth just to soften the blend. I'm gonna go up against it in the back here. It tends to be more bulky. It's also an easier angle for me just to grab it. Anything else I may see in the back here, I'm gonna just go ahead and grab, making sure to angle out my comb so that scissor work falls out from the bottom and my clipper work is not shooting through the comb. And then when I get to this side, I'm gonna also blend with the hair growth. It's going this way, so I'm going to angle my comb to mock that hair growth and blend it with the direction that we want it to actually go. Alrighty. And then at this point, I could go around his haircut and finish the style itself, put any additional products that I may want in there just to help with the curls, and then also go around those ears and the neck with my trimmer. So I'll do that really quick, going from 3 to 12, stopping at 12, and then coming from 9 to 12 to meet up. Lining those sideburns or shaving them off completely, depending on what you've got going on. The back of the neck here, making sure that we line that too. Grabbing any fuzzies at the bottom of the neck. Going from 9 to 12, 3 to 12, and anything else.